Hello, my name is John Didi, professor of political science at the community colleges of Baltimore County and local media political analyst. Welcome to the Maryland State Politics and Government podcast on Substack. Today, I am talking with candidate for Baltimore County Executive Nick Stewart. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
My first question I'm going to ask is, how's the campaign going?
Sure. So it's going well. The momentum here is real, and we are seeing that as things warm up to some extent. People are paying more attention, but we hit this really big fundraising deadline in January of this year. People were looking to see, are we real? Are we credible? And we outraised Izzy Patoka, we outraised Pat Young, and we stood out as being a campaign that is being fueled by small dollar donations. This is almost 65% of our donations. And then just on top of that, right, looking at the type of support we've been able to build with stakeholders in the community, the dozens of teams that are going out every week to do field, the volunteers that we have, this whole thing is growing exponentially each week. And so that's real. But the other big thing that's happened, John, that of course, is that it came out that the Baltimore County Council and every person running for county executive voted to double their pensions on the way out of office. And this is that kind of October surprise moment that puts into crystal clear relief the contrast that exists in this campaign. The reason for us to be in this race as reformers, as people who say our reputation, these kind of Spiro Agnew type of things that continue to happen in Baltimore County, we have got to turn a page. And that's this moment, and that's our opportunity.
When you're meeting with voters, I'm not talking at fundraisers, but when you're running into them at grocery stores or in small little community gatherings, people that are open-minded, what are the issues they're talking about? They say that they want you to focus on if you're elected.
I mean, honestly, 2 out of 3 voters now, and we've been at the doors a lot recently, will bring up the pension issue. And this idea that they don't like the self-dealing that goes on in Baltimore County. Because I think we know, John, in our heart of hearts, that we cannot focus on the bigger things in this county, like the 30 to 40,000 kids who live in extreme poverty in our county, who are suffering from not enough to eat, or the teacher contracts that we had to break and we couldn't possibly fund. We'll never be able to tackle those things unless and until we restore basic trust with our community members. And that is a central thrust of this campaign. And on top of that, you do hear about affordability. Folks are having a hard time making a living. This is energy, this is childcare, this is incomes in their jobs that have fallen in Baltimore County for 5 years in a row. This is housing. We hear all those things packaged together, but there's a real significant contrast when they're having such a hard time making things meet. And our county council voted for some of them to go from $40,000 a year in their pension to $90,000 per year. And that's unconscionable.
The next question deals with something you slightly touched on just a minute ago. Right now, there is legislation that's being proposed to allow Baltimore County's council to have legislation occur to where they can give the county inspector general the power to kind of look into the Baltimore County public school system. It's been a fiefdom for years. It's its own independent little thing that politicians can't even dive into. How do you feel about giving the inspector general that much power?
I personally think that it makes a ton of sense. And I am the former vice chair of the school board. I'm the only person who has served within the school system who is running for office here. And I can tell you that the audits that we perform are not the same thing as doing investigative work or understanding waste, fraud, and abuse at the level that we need to. And so, given that more than 50% of every dollar in Baltimore County is spent in public education, this is a way for us to close the loop and undertake a best practice, something that Montgomery County does, and something that the State Inspector General for Education also supports for the county to take on. So with all of that aligned, this is something that is due.
What has surprised you the most in the campaign?
It's a great question. I think the thing that surprised me the most is when you are talking to voters and you're at their door, and you have this change message, right? We really and truly believe this is a moment to do things differently. And we built out a massive plan to do so. We are the only campaign with a real plan for every part of this county. I would encourage folks to compare the websites. You will see it, right? We stand for something. The thing that we still bump up against is a belief that in Baltimore County, this is the way we always do it, because this is the way we've always done it. And so part of this campaign is not just educating people about the state of the county or the fact that there are this many kids who live in poverty, or that it has never been harder to buy a home in our county, or that we're losing population for the first time in 100 years in Baltimore County. But it's having them come out and believe again that things can be different and that what they do in this effort and in this work truly matters.
Everybody in politics or follows politics at some point when they get started have a politician that they admire, kind of look up to a lot, or kind of want to emulate as they get further along in their political career. Who are your political heroes and North Stars for you?
Yeah, so the single clearest example of that is going to be Bobby Kennedy. Now, this is not Robert Kennedy
The good
Jr.
Bobby, yeah, let's clarify the good Bobby Kennedy or the bad Bobby Kennedy.
Let's be clear. Yeah, absolutely right. So Bobby Kennedy, when he ran in 68, and during that period of time, he brought a message, and there was another person in that race who was talking about the politics of joy, the politics of happiness. And Bobby Kennedy sort of rejected that and said, look, it's not that we can't be hopeful. We can and should be. But the idea that life is good for everybody and that we should blindly go through it is wrong. And that's a big part of this campaign too, is to try to wake the county up to some extent that the moment, the tipping point is here. And if we don't solve for it, then we're going to have a real problem because the issues will become hardened. We'll have lost too many people. We won't be able to come back the way we need to. And so he cared about pulling people off the sidelines and saying to them, the things that have happened in your name are your responsibility. The fact that your country has gotten to the place that it has is all of our responsibility. And I feel very strongly that way in Baltimore County too. He believed that there is dignity in every single person. He believed that there is an individual responsibility to advance a common good. And he believed that the things that unite us were far greater than the things that divide us. And I believe those things too. And I see it every day in our county. And so there is that hope and that spirit in this campaign.
40 years ago, you had a competitive gubernatorial primary for Democrats that brought out a lot of extra turnout that may have tweaked a couple races here and there across the state. Do you feel that the Baltimore County State's Attorney's race could impact the county executive race as far as turnout and things like that?
Question. And before I get to it, the one thing I do want to mention that Bobby Kennedy stood for, and I think about this with all the races, including the council races, right? We'll have 7 new council candidates out of the 9 total council seats that we have, is that what he was trying to do and what we are trying to do is take power out of the concentrated hands of decision makers who have had it for too long and put it back into communities and have communities be their own problem solvers. That is not something we do. We have tried to concentrate and hide behind closed doors a lot of the decision making and power, and that has been problematic for us. And so when I think about races like the Attorney General's race, or I'm sorry, the state's attorney's race, I think we have an opportunity to envision a more modern future for Baltimore County writ large. And that race speaks to it, right? There is a real element that if we can do things right with the state's attorney's office and pair that together with a new sheriff, pair it together with 7 new council members, pair it together with a new county executive, this is the moment. This is the fulcrum point at which Baltimore County can lean into a modern era.
The next question centers on campaigning. Bill Clinton loved campaigning, loved it to death. Barney Frank once said he just hated the idea of campaigning and all that stuff. On a scale of 1 to 10, Clinton being the 10, Barney Frank being at 1, how do you put yourself in a place to where, how do you feel about campaigning and all that?
Yeah, so I guess 1 to 10, I'm more Bill Clinton than I am on the other side of that house. And the reason is because the campaigns, if you do it right, are the way by which you engage people into their own challenges. And when that happens, John, there is a magic moment that occurs and a light goes off. You see it in their own eyes, but then you feel it on the campaign and you feel the momentum. Look, the first few months of this, it can be drudgery and really hard work. And you're wondering what sort of traction you might build. And you have so many people doubting you and doubting us. So many people doubted us, doubted that we'd be where we are at this very moment. And we continue to push back and we continue to stick to our core beliefs and our core values. And for this to be way bigger than me, and John, it is, it's right. This is not about me. This is about a series of values and ideas that we all believe in together. To have that become as large as it has is one of the most gratifying things and hopeful things that can happen. So when campaigns arrive at that place, man, it is a special feeling, and it makes it all worthwhile. These are movements, right? These aren't just moments. We can do something that has lasting impact for hundreds of thousands of people that we call our neighbors in Baltimore County. This is the promise. And so, how do you not love that? How do you not lean into that? That is this moment. And I love that.
You feel there is an endorsement out there that is gettable, which could change the race.
But are you asking, is there one?
Do you think there's
Yeah.
someone out there who could really push any of the candidates, you, et cetera, over the finish line?
Yeah, look, I think there are three, because the Baltimore Banner, to my understanding, will not endorse, Baltimore Sun doesn't endorse anymore. I think the three important endorsements you look at are the police officers, the firefighters, and the teachers. These are folks who represent a significant swath of not just the electorate, but of people who are doing the frontline work. And then you sort of talk about, those folks as having this trusted reputation and brand, and as some of the core pillars of government and of society that we can't grow and we cannot invest unless those things are in place. And this is the work that they are doing. So I think they matter, and I think that they can cut through. And plus, those organizations in years past have stepped up, right? This is about sharing not just money and mailers, but door knockers and volunteers. And they also, have a stamp of credibility that the vision that their candidate stands for makes sense for those on the front lines and makes sense for your kids, makes sense for your communities that want to be safe. And so I think these are really, really important. But that's not to say that AFL-CIO and AFSCME, aren't critical elements to it. They are as well. I think there are quite a few voices we're going to have to, hear from and see, because my agenda, as you know, John, is about building a bolder Baltimore County that is far more inclusive and affordable. And we're going to need the trades. We're going to need people who are doing the front line of government, the permitting, the approvals, the inspections, all of that to be on board with a new vision of government.
One of the big controversies that's occurred over the last few months is the role of ICE in Baltimore County and frankly in the state of Maryland in general.
Sure.
What type of relationship do you think the county should have if you're elected county executive with ICE?
I don't think we should have much of a formal relationship. I am already on the record as being in support of terminating the MOU. But I think the point is we need to do a couple things really right. And we need to ensure that when it's time to take a stand, we're willing to take a stand. I started my career as a litigator and as a prosecutor in Prince George's County. I know what it takes to actually have to engage in lawsuits, whether they're affirmative and proactive or defensive, right? That doesn't scare me. And sometimes we have to stand for things, so it's really important. I think our government should be sharing more public information about the information we know about ICE operations or about ICE activity in Baltimore County. And then also making sure we're meeting people where they are and reimagining the way we should deliver services to those who are not taking advantage of them, but who need them. This is as basic as food pantry services that certain minority communities or Hispanic communities are not reaching because they live in fear. We've seen the graduation rates drop. This is all problematic, while at the same time ensuring that we draw the distinction between ICE and between our local police, because we need those relationships to be strong in the communities. You talk to our Black and Brown communities and what they need to be successful and to thrive. And public safety is a big part of that. And they want to be able to feel secure in their homes and in their neighborhoods. And so we have to continue to lean into community policing in a way that matters.
What is the biggest, what the hell was I thinking moment you've had on the campaign?
What the hell was I thinking? Um, I sort of knew going into it what it would be, but I think the point is I know who I am and I'm stuck. And that is drafting as much as we have drafted and putting, thousands and thousands and thousands of words online, writing 10 op-eds, right? Doing all of that work. But I understand that, at the end of the day, a lot of this is about name recognition and all of it. And look, we have been doing that work too. But I think the point is, we were going to stand for something. We always were. This was really important for us to have that out there. It is our love letter to Baltimore County. It is born from more than 500 individual sit downs that I have had in this campaign. But it took a lot of time and energy and effort to get there, and I know that too.
My last question centers on something very simple. What has been the most joyful moment on the campaign for you?
Yeah, so just to boil it all the way down, and I have a few to pick from, but certainly one of them that stands out the most is door knocking with my kids. And there's been one occasion, so I have 4 kids, they're 10, 8, 6, and 5, and they all have tried to do their own part. Like I had 3 of my boys, the 3 younger ones are boys. They were out like selling Pokemon cards to try to, fundraise for the campaign. We've had, door knocking kickoffs with them and all of that. But there was one afternoon where I was knocking doors with my son, TC, who's 8, and he was getting tired. And I get it. Like we were going out there doing the work, and we knock on the door. It's our last door. And of course this happens on your last door, but you hit the last door. And this older gentleman, this is in Randallstown, comes to the door. We have woken him up from a nap. And he kind of rubs the sleep from his eyes, is sort of wondering who we are, what we're doing. And we talk through it. And he gets to sharing about how his wife has gotten sick. And they had all these grand ideas around travel as they retire. And now they can't do that. And now they don't even have a jazz club anymore along Randallstown or nice sit-down restaurants that they can go to, and just how they feel like, and he's feeling like he's missing a significant chunk of the time he wants to spend with her. And it was real, right? And this, like, there's this gentleman who's willing to pour out his heart because he believes that maybe at the door, this might matter and that we might be able to do something about it. And my son, is kind of going like, oh, he's tired of it. And because he's stopped listening. And so we wrap up the conversation. It was wonderful. I get a chance to talk with him and share with him this kind of moment, this special thing that happened. And he gets it, just clicks instantly. And he talks about it the entire ride home. Like, this is why we're doing this, right? I said, exactly, right? Every person in this county matters. And not just because Johnny Olszewski won by 17 votes, but because every person in this county matters. And for him to be able to share that with his siblings and to carry that forward, like that's why we do it.
I want to thank you again for your time again, and good luck on the campaign trail. I want to remind everybody on Tuesday, April 7th at 9:30 in the morning at the Community Colleges of Baltimore County, the Essex campus, there will be a candidates forum of the various county executive candidates. Thank you again and have a good day.
Thanks, John. You too.